Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm Madeline.
And I'm Andrea.
And I'm Kim.
And this is episode 148. For new viewers, Fruity Knitting is a 90-minute program that brings you knitting inspiration from around the world. We're currently in Canada, as well as some snippets of travel, history, and storytelling that we hope adds joy to your life and brings a smile to your face.
And for this episode, we've travelled across the Atlantic to attend the Prince Edward Island Fibre Festival here in Canada. And joining us is one of the organisers of the festival. This is Kim from Fleece Harmony. And some of you already know Kim because she has been on Fruity Knitting a couple of times, and she has her own YouTube channel, and I think we're sharing some viewers.
Yes, I think so.
Kim also has a small sheep farm here on the island, and she has a woolen mill. So for the viewers who don't know you, just say something quick about the Fleece Harmony woolen mill.
Sure. The Fleece Harmony woolen mill is located on our sheep farm, actually, in rural PEI. It's a cottage-sized mill where we spin almost exclusively fibre that we buy from farmers on Prince Edward Island. We do have mohair in some of our yarns, and we can't get that here on Prince Edward Island, so we do buy that from a farm in Ontario. But other than that, it's all wool from Prince Edward Island. And we hand dye all of the skeins using heavy metal-free dyes. We have about 120 colors in our catalog now, and we sell exclusively in our shop and on our online shop. We're also a Rowan flagship store. So in the middle of the country in Prince Edward Island, I have a Rowan flagship store where I think we have the largest selection of Rowan east of Ontario, actually.
Yeah, and we've got a big selection of your yarn here in lovely colours, which we're going to talk about later. So we've put together an exciting 60-minute collage of the festival, which should give you a really good sense of what the event's all about. And hopefully, if you couldn't make it this year, you'll feel inspired to visit in the future. So our coverage includes a short interview with Kim and Linda, who are two of the organisers behind the festival. And we also have a series of short vendor interviews, and that includes a very talented woodworker who handcrafts spindles and other crafting tools from locally harvested wood in Nova Scotia. And his tools are really so beautiful that I would just buy them, even though I'm not a spinner, just to display it.
Yeah, they're works of art. Yeah, that's a supported spindle.
Yeah,
Scott does.
And it is meant to spin very fine yarn.
Yes,
which would be what I would want.
Yes.
We also feature a natural hand dyer from Nova Scotia and a milliner who blends different fibre crafts, including knitting, just to make really stunning custom-made hats. Plus, we're highlighting a local spinner who cards beautiful colourways for spinners, and she uses very unique fibre combinations of wool, silk, flax and hemp. And we've got an interview with Briggs & Little, who's Canada's most famous woolen mill. So we've tried to put together a diverse range of vendors for you that I think you'll find really interesting. And as always, we've interviewed a few visitors for our Vox Pop segment. So it's a full program.
Yeah. And we have covered a lot of festivals over the years, but this one was special because we became part of it. For the first time, we got up in front of a live audience and shared a behind-the-scenes look of how Fruity Knitting began and also how we run it. And we also talked about the many blessings we've had along the way, like getting to travel and meeting talented and knowledgeable people, working with family, and also having the creative freedom to shape how we want to work and also our YouTube channel. And so it was just a lot of fun to reflect back on all of this and also to meet and chat with people afterwards.
It was really great to meet you afterwards, yeah.
And apart from our presentation, the festival also featured the knitting pilgrim, Kirk Dunn, with his knitted stained glass windows. And we actually interviewed Kirk Dunn back in episode 136 when he toured Germany with his one-man show about how and why he created these knitted stained glass windows. And another highlight was an evening concert with the world-class fiddler Richard Wood. And Richard is known for playing traditional Celtic and maritime music. He's even performed for the likes of Queen Elizabeth II and the Emperor of Japan. I didn't even know there was an Emperor of Japan.
I didn't even know that about Richard.
So he's a really incredible musician. And this particular concert was a homage to the maritime kitchen party. So there was also a caller who led some fun community dances, and there were also some local tap dancers all during the concert. And Kim, you spent months helping to plan the festival as a volunteer, so why don't you tell us your thoughts now that the festival is over?
Relief. first. It was a great time. I've had a bit of a chance to rest up, so that's good. But I think that what makes a festival like this so special is the community that it creates. So people come to the festival, they already know some people that are there, but they meet new friends as well. And when you walk through the venue at the end of the day and you see all of the wool crafters sitting together, chattering and sharing their crafts, it really is a very heartwarming thing. We've had people come from all over the world, literally. We had people from Australia and New Zealand, from every territory and province in Canada, even from the Arctic as well were there.
That's true,
Yes. And we also had people, I think visitors from more than 25 of the US states as well. So it was really a gathering place for people that love to work with fibre and wool.
Yeah. And the produce was excellent. I thought that, the choice of vendors was really good and varied, and they had beautiful things, which is what we want to get onto very soon. We've got produce here in front of us. So apart from us, Madeline and I, doing a lot of work behind the scenes as well, just filming things for you, similar to you, we feel quite relieved that it's over.
Yes,
we can be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
But we have luckily been invited to Kim and Ken's every second evening for dinner. So we've been really enjoying hanging out here on Kim's farm and visiting her mill. And I really wanted to bring back some, because it's not every day that we get to visit the Fleece and Harmony woolen mill, and I really wanted to bring back some more Fleece and Harmony yarn, because last time we were here, Madeline picked out the signature Aran weight, and this is the colourway Autumn Birch, which you've knitted up into the good grandpa cardigan.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite cardigans. It wears well, it's got cute little pockets, and I love the Autumn Birch colourway.
It's stunning. It does wear really well.
Yeah.
And so that was 2 years ago that we were last on Prince Edward Island, and back then you were designing a new fingering weight yarn, and you were using like a really special fleece from a special flock of sheep here on the island, and we've got it here, and that turned into the Wildwinds fingering weight. So what purpose were you intending this for back then?
Well, you might recall that flock of sheep is a mixed breed flock. The flock has Rideau Arcot sheep, Coopworth, and North Country Cheviot. They're very hardy. They stay outside all year round on PEI, so that's saying something.
That's saying a lot, because it gets down to minus 30?
Yeah, it
degrees.
can. Yes. So they have shelter in a beautiful, I call it the Forest Cathedral. So they live in among the spruce trees and things like that. So the wool has a very specific texture, which is quite different from the wool that we spin all of our other yarns with. So we had to make a new line. And I'd been dying to do more Nordic style knits and selbu mittens and things like that. So we didn't have a yarn in my catalog that was suitable for that or didn't match what the traditional yarns were. So we decided to make one with the Wildwinds flock yarn fleece.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, and we were working on it when you were here last, and as you might recall, we only were doing 5 colors. We did a natural white, a gray, and a natural black, and we were trying to stick really with the traditional colors. We added a blue and a red just to give a bit of pop, but now it's been a success.
Yes.
And now we have 18 colors.
Wow.
Yes. And we can't stop. Yeah.
It is gorgeous. It's 2-ply.
Yeah.
And it really does have the same specs as a typical Norwegian wool, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
These gorgeous mittens.
Yes, exactly. So those are actually Songbird mittens by Erica Hauser that I knit in the Wildwinds 2-ply. And I knit it quite a tight gauge, but you can also do cowls and things like that. And it's quite soft.
Yeah, it's much softer here. This is a little bit of a looser gauge, isn't it?
Yes.
That's also really stunning.
Yeah. So that's the Ruby Cowl by Sand and Sky Creations.
And I love the light coloured yarn. It's got more speckles in it too.
Yes, so we have a couple of variegated colours and a couple of speckled colours as well.
So Betsy's getting creative.
Yes, she is.
That's really great. Yeah. Well, lately I have been really enjoying wearing bright blues, as you've possibly noticed. So naturally I gravitated towards this beautiful summer sky blue, which you're calling Trondheim blue.
Yeah.
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 So I've bought enough of this yarn to knit up a jumper. I'm not sure what I'm going to knit yet, but I do know that I'm going to pair it with this light shade of Kid Silk Haze. This is the Rowan, because I really love the sort of heathered texture that makes. And I'm also still really hooked on this combination of using a fingering weight wool yarn held together with a silk mohair, because it just creates a really luxurious fabric that's also kind of glamorous, and it goes with like shiny material, so you can wear skirts with it and you're not just limited to wearing jeans with your jumpers.
Yes, and the weight is not, it doesn't increase the weight so much, but it does give warmth as well.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful combination for sure.
And it also makes it quite hardy. This is something I thought about later. So even though it's a glamorous fabric, it's actually really hardy.
Yes.
So you can roll around on the ground and you still look great.
Yeah.
So that's that. Well, yeah, in theory.
Yeah.
That's going to be my new project, which I'm really excited about. So that is actually the only purchase I made, but there is something else that I want to show you. One of the vendors that Madeline interviewed was Anna from the Hat Junkie, and she's the milliner who is blending different fibre crafts, including knitting, to make really stunning custom-made hats. Well, she was a lot of fun to work with when we were interviewing her, and I actually fell in love with one of the hats that she shows during the interview. Here it is here. And to my great surprise, the very next day, she gifted it to me, which is super special because it's a handmade hat, but also the material is hand woven. So
It's gorgeous.
it is.
Yeah, I'm just going to take it off.
And I just want first.
Oh, sorry.
I've only just put it on. What I wanted to say is that you can, and I've got a hair clip at the back, so it's got to fit over that. So you can wear it with the brim down, or you can wear it up like this.
And I'm now not in the 1920s and down now be rewatching it, and it's perfect.
So what did you want to say?
Well, because I did the interview, I thought I'd just tell you a little bit more about the style. This is a cloche hat. It's like a popular 1920s style. And the fabric was commissioned from a hand weaver in Lunenburg. It's 100% wool, and it has this lovely silk cotton blend lining on the inside in a beautiful blue. And Anna's really cool. She likes to work on antique machinery, and her husband even built her a Victorian-style hat studio.
Oh.
And she sewed this particular hat on her great-grandmother's Singer treadle sewing machine from the 1900s. And apart from making her hats look very aesthetically pleasing, she also likes to make them practical. So, for example, the brim is interfaced, not wired. So Mum just showed you how you can style it. But you can also roll it up and pack it away if you have to, without worrying about how the hat looks afterwards. And because the fabric is 100% woven, it's naturally 100% wool, it's naturally water resistant, so Mum's going to be able to wear this hat in snowy and rainy weather.
You should work for her.
Great.
You're doing such a good selling job of the hat. But it is a really stunning hat, and it's a very
super
special
cute.
gift.
Mum's eyes pop out in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
It's a really lovely hat.
Yeah.
And Anna is also kindly offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 10% discount off all her items in her online store. And her handmade collection of hats includes a beautiful range of styles like straw hats, felted hats and canvas hats, as well as headbands. And for those who are interested in making their own hat, she also offers a felted beret kit with an optional video tutorial. So thanks very much to Anna for that generous discount.
And our second discount is with another one of our vendors. Emma from Botanical Fibres is generously offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 20% discount on all yarns in her online store. So her collection features 15 beautiful core colours achieved through natural dyes, and these core colours are available in various shades depending on the fibre base and the dye intensity. So thank you very much to Emma.
So before we take you to the festival, each of us has a knitting project that we want to talk about under construction. And we're going to start with you, Kim.
Hey, so I have a bit of a different kind of project. Everybody has their favorite sweater.
Yeah.
Mine is this acrylic beauty from about 20 years ago that I purchased. And it's kind of the sweater that I wear when I want to really get into my pajamas, but I don't want to be in my pajamas. So I've worn this sweater for a long, long time. but it is mostly acrylic, as I said, but I wanted to knit it in natural fibers. So I couldn't find a pattern that exactly looked like this, and this fits me perfectly. It has all of the things that I wanted, so I decided that I would try to reconstruct this sweater in another yarn without a pattern.
That's a good challenge.
It is a good challenge, yeah. So that's the sweater. So I was able to find 2 Rowan yarns to combine to get the same weight and gauge as the sweater, because I didn't want to start doing sizing and that whole thing. So I've settled on a combination of Rowan cotton cashmere held together with alpaca classic. So this sweater does have some cotton and wool in it, a tiny percentage. So this fabric will be mimicking the fabric that I'm making will mimic the fabric of the one I love.
Okay, also in looks, because it's the same heather kind of.
Exactly. So the challenge is that I have to make raglan sleeves, and I have to do it through color work. So
because this would have been machine knit in pieces.
Exactly. So I have to do all of the pieces, and I got some advice from my team that said I should be just knitting all the pieces up to the level of the color work first, because although it was not an expensive sweater and it was machine made, when you wear it, the way that the arms fall against the yoke, it's exactly matching. So the pattern goes exactly across. So in order to get that effect, it was going to be a bit of a challenge if I knit everything, the front, then the back, and then the sleeves independently. So I think I got good advice. So, but what I have now is I have the front and the back knit to like this piece, knit to where the level of the color work starts, and then I've started the sleeves 2 at a time. So I'll knit them to where the color work starts. So this so far has been kind of easy peasy. But when it gets to the color work and then there's increases and decreases and building the raglan, I think I'm going to be challenged a little bit more.
So what is your plan? Is your plan to then do everything in the round, join it all together, or to continue doing it in pieces?
I'll continue doing it in pieces. And I've chosen 2 other colors for contrast. So this original one has 4 colors in it, but I'm going to use 3.
So we have to imagine this is now down here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like this.
And then I'll have color work with the three colors.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So it should be nice.
It's going to be good.
So I tend to be slowing down because I'm getting closer to the part that's going to be more challenging. But I do have help. I'm a big fan of Amy Herzog's Ultimate Sweater Book, and it's basically a recipe book for sweaters. And she does handle all different sleeve types and things like that. So with the help of Amy, I am going to embark on finishing the raglan sweater, and I'm going to do the turtleneck the same. It should look just like this.
Okay, even with this little edging of darker blue.
Sure.
Good for you. That's quite a challenge to do it in pieces, isn't it?
I like knitting in pieces and sewing.
I do too.
Yeah. But
I can imagine most people will be thinking it's a big challenge.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking it's a big challenge, more because of the complication of the color work and getting everything to match in the same way.
And are you planning to do the same color work pattern?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have lots of Nordic stitch dictionary, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to, the good thing about that I will mimic is that this sweater does have breaks of straight stockinette without any color, and that's where I can do my shaping. Yes. So I want the motifs to be matching in the different pieces. So when you're doing increases and decreases, that can be a bit challenging, obviously, to keep the motif intact. So they did kindly insert stripes that will allow me to do the increasing and decreasing without messing with the motif.
Okay, good for you. But you're going to basically do a large motif and a smaller one, or
yes, just different from this. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm up to.
And what is the gauge?
Oh, I don't even remember. I think it's about 24. I can't. I actually can't remember. I think it's 18 stitches.
It's
per,
it's a good gauge to be knitting at.
Yes, it goes pretty quick. Yes, it goes pretty quick.
Okay. Is that you done?
Yes, that's me done.
Okie dokie, then it's my turn.
Yeah.
So, Halloween is around the corner, and I love this holiday. It's not really celebrated widely in Europe, but I just love seeing carved pumpkins that are lit up by candles and people dressing up in fun or spooky costumes. So, to get into the Halloween spirit, I have been reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King. It's sort of turns out that it's a vampire story, but it's not one of those stories that idolizes vampires. They remain the spooky, awful creatures that they once were before Twilight. Yeah.
And this is what you're knitting.
That's right. So
a lovely leader too.
That's right. So I'm knitting these, and I actually grabbed Charlotte Stone's book for that to knit myself these Halloween-themed patterns. So this pattern is called I'm Batty for Halloween, and it's covered in little black bats against a radiant pumpkin-coloured background. They're really fun to knit, and for the orange I'm using the recommended Malabrigo hand-dyed sock yarn. It's 100% merino, and the black yarn is a blend of 75% wool and 25% nylon. Yeah, so these socks are just so fun and unique that I didn't want them to disappear entirely underneath my boots. And since most of my boots do have higher shafts, I decided to add 3 extra rows of bats to the sock leg in hopes that at least the top row of my sock would be visible while I'm wearing my boots. So I did that, and that worked well. I did have a little bit of a struggle with my gauge. As always. So Charlotte usually recommends going up a needle size when you knit colour work, because colour work tends to tighten your gauge and also reduce stretchiness, which we can't really afford when we're knitting socks because our big heels need to fit through this entire part here. So the recommended gauge is 36 stitches by 44 rows, and my gauge is, as always, a bit tighter at 38 stitches by 46 rows, and this entire sock is knitted on 2.25mm needles, by the way, because if this were a section with colourwork up here and this is stocking stitch, then I would go down a needle size again, but everything's covered in colourwork. Yeah, so my gauge is tighter than recommended. I still went ahead and knitted this because I was being naughty, and actually the sock leg fit me well until I reached the heel. So
the problem with you is that you fall in love with tiny little stitches, and so you keep knitting it because it looks so machine knit, and you kind of convince yourself it's going to fit on your foot.
I'm a bit like Cinderella's stepsister. But you know, in the original Cinderella, they actually cut off the heel or the toe, and I do not intend to sacrifice that for a pair of socks.
Okay.
So what I did is, once I reached the heel, I actually just ripped back a few rows and knit the last 3 rows of bats on 2.5mm needles. So I went up a needle size and I continued for the rest of the sock.
And you can't tell any difference, really.
No.
These bats might be very slightly bigger than those bats.
I think they're way
great
bigger.
trick to do that.
But yeah. And my thought was also that over time the sock leg probably tends to wear out a bit and then start falling down. So I thought maybe I'm working against that a little bit. It'll last for a little longer.
Okay. Have you actually put it on?
Yeah, this fits me perfectly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What a relief.
Success.
Yeah. So now I'm just working on the second sock, and I'm still hoping to have it done in time for Halloween, which should happen.
Well, they do look gorgeous. They do look very
Stunning.
impressive, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Definitely. You want to hang them up, actually.
No, I want to wear them.
Okay. Okay, so that's you done?
Yep.
So, in the last episode, Madeline interviewed Premier Fine Fibres, which is a young Swiss yarn company that collaborates with nomads and farmers in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. And they produce very, very beautiful cashmere yarns. And I'm using their yarns for my latest knitting project, and I'm pairing it together with this colour-changing yarn from Spin Cycle to make an incredibly crazy, bright colourwork jumper.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
It's not crazy at all.
So just to remind you, this is the design. It's called Do You Yoke, and it's by the UK designer Zanete Knits. So Zanete is originally from Latvia, and many of her designs feature very creative interpretations of traditional motifs from Latvian folklore. So the jumper is top down in the round. It's a yoke jumper, and it has deep running colour work that goes right down past the sleeve separation. Okay, so maybe you hold it for me. and get all the...
I've been dying to do this.
to be a prop assistant. Just get the ends and bits and pieces out the way. So, like I mentioned in the last episode, for this design, it's really crucial to have a high contrast between the main colour, which in my case is the dark orchid, and the colour changing yarn, which is this spin cycle yarn. Because if the colour changing yarn has sections of low contrast against the main colour, this dark orchid, then the pattern in those areas is going to appear faded or washed out. And so for that, I'm referring to the colour value, so the lightness and darkness of each colour. And you can see, I think I've achieved that because every single colour in this colour changing yarn is clearly standing out. Every part of the pattern is clearly standing out against the dark purple. So even if I took a black and white photo, you would see every stitch that's in this colour, like all these little stitches here are all standing out really well. And it gives a really big contrast. So that's what I've done so far. As I've said, it's knitted in the round, top down, and I've gone down past the sleeve separation. And if I unroll it here, you can see I've finished the actual colour work. So the colour work goes really quite low. And from now on, it's just straight stocking stitch in the dark orchid colour. And it is, for me, a very bright, bold, crazy combination of colours. And I do keep going back and forward between thinking, oh my goodness, it's too bright and bold for me. And then thinking, actually, it could end up looking really groovy. And Madeline keeps assuring me that if it's too bright and bold for me, she will definitely take it.
Oh, she has to.
And I've been complaining about it too much. It is out of my comfort zone, but I'm also liking it. As I said, I keep oscillating.
Those are the best knits.
Yes, that's
more
true.
exciting.
That's true. So there's one thing I want to say, that is, I normally go for the smaller size. In this case, the smaller size, the bust measurement was 87 centimetres, which is exactly my bust measurement. So it would mean I have no positive ease. So I went for the next size up, which has 97 centimetres. And that's okay around the bust, but I think it doesn't fit me as quite so well around the upper neckline, because I think it's super important for everything to lie flat right up around the neckline. So I tried it on and took some footage so that you see what I mean. So the neckline looks quite wide, but don't worry about that because I'm going to be picking up stitches and I'll be knitting on a 5 centimetre neckband, which will just close up the area around the neck. But you can see that the yoke sits fairly flat across my back, but when I'm turning around to the front, you can see that it's looser across my upper chest. So instead of sitting flat across the chest, it sort of has folds of material, which I don't think looks that good. And this is how it looks on Madeline. So it fits her perfectly across the back and also across the front. It's lying really flat with no extra folds or wrinkles.
So I think this is a sign.
Yes, she was extremely happy after she tried it on, and then she went on and on and on about how wonderful the colour combination was. Mm-hmm. So I think I got the hint, and I thought, okay, instead of ripping it out and trying to make it a little bit smaller for me, I'll just keep knitting it, and if it is too big for me, then Madeline can have it.
Score, Madeline.
Yeah. So there is something else I want to say, and this is the first time I've knitted one of Zanete Knits patterns, and I am totally loving it. And one of the reasons is because the fabric that she's knitted, or the gauge that she recommends, is exactly the gauge that I would choose to knit at. Normally, I find that I'm often knitting at a tighter gauge than what the designer recommends, and then I have to redo all of the maths of the pattern, because I like it a slightly tighter because it looks neater and it wears better, and she obviously thinks so too. So I'm totally thrilled. Yes, I'm totally thrilled that she loves a firmer fabric or a fabric that I love, so I don't have to rearrange the maths. And I will definitely be knitting more of her patterns, not only because of the gauge, but because she has a lot of groovy patterns. She's a really cool designer, and I'm really pleased to say that you will also get to know her a little bit better on Fruity Knitting in the future. So apart from that, just getting back to the yarns, I'm also super happy about how well they go together. They feel really balanced in the hands when you're working colour work. They both seem to have the same elasticity. I don't know whether they do, but they feel very balanced in the hands, and that feels really nice. So it's a very pleasurable knit, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And it's going pretty fast, I have to say, but I think colourwork patterns do that because you think, I'd just get to the next section, and it pushes you on to do a little bit more.
It's a built-in progress keeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have short rows in the back as well.
Yeah, short rows in the back, And it does look like the neckline, like I said, is wide, but you actually pick up stitches at the end and knit a folded over.
That's what I love too.
Yeah, I really love that. She does interesting necklines as well. She's got interesting little details.
You'll have a lovely sweater, Madeline.
You'll have to see who's wearing it on the next episode, and then you'll know the answer. Okay, so that's us done.
Yeah, so coming up soon is a taste of the PEI Fibre Festival, which we really hope you enjoy. Covering festivals is always very exciting for Mum and me. I was looking forward to this months in advance. And at the same time, you would be surprised at how much additional work and time goes into preparing everybody involved and then filming and editing these special festival episodes. So we want to say a really, really big thank you to our Fruity Knitting patrons, whose financial support makes all of this possible. Both Mum and I work 6 days a week, investing a huge amount of time and energy into creating this show. And while you might see the occasional advertisement on our videos, the ad revenue doesn't go to us ever. It always goes to the copyright holders of the music we use to enhance the quality of the show. So if you find yourself enjoying Fruity Knitting and wanting to see new episodes, or just wanting to say thank you for what we've produced so far, then we would kindly ask you to become a Fruity Knitting patron. You can do so by going to patreon.com/fruityknitting, and it doesn't have to be a large amount of money. A monthly donation of $5 a month would already really help us out to keep running this show. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We do really appreciate it. So now it's time to take you to the festival. And at the beginning of our coverage, we've included some extra footage of the beautiful landscape here on Prince Edward Island, along with some interesting anecdotes and facts. So we hope you really enjoy it. And it is now time for us to say goodbye. And we look forward to seeing you again in November.
Thank you for spending time with us.
Bye. Prince Edward Island is Canada's smallest province, but it has the highest concentration of lighthouses in North America. That's because it has a deeply indented coastline, and altogether there are 63 lighthouses dotted along its shores. Typically, lighthouses were built out of stone, but Prince Edward Island lacks this resource, so most of the lighthouses are built from timber. They're very charming, small, square, tapered towers, and we came across many of them as we drove around the island. One evening, we drove to Prince Edward Island's very first lighthouse, which was built in 1845 at Point Prim. It's one of the few round lighthouses in Canada, built out of brick, but covered in wooden shingles on the outside. It's been in service since 1845 and it was automated in 1969. We spent the evening here and watched the sun set over a metallic blue ocean. It was such a beautiful, calm evening, and we were the only ones there, apart from a curious black fox that came up to us hoping to find some food. Prince Edward Island was once famous for its fox farming industry. It all began back in the 1890s with two businessmen who were experimenting with fox breeding. They succeeded in creating black foxes with silver veins in their fur, and this started the so-called Silver Rush, and Prince Edward Island became the world's leading provider of fox furs. But this all finished during the Great Depression in the 1930s because farmers couldn't afford to feed their foxes and many foxes were let loose. Nowadays the island is strongly populated by foxes, and the red fox has even become declared Prince Edward Island's provincial animal. And after a generation or two, most of the foxes reverted to having red coats again, but you'll still see the occasional black fox like this one, which we came across at Point Prim. We're here on Prince Edward Island for the Fibre Festival, which is held in Charlottetown, the main city on the island. And the festival is now in its second year, and a lot of care and effort has gone into the preparation to make it a really world-class fibre event. And joining me now are the two women who are the driving force behind the festival, Linda Lowther and Kim Doherty-Smith.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to PEI.
Before we begin, I just want to say that Madeline and I are totally thrilled that you invited us over here to cover the festival and also be part of the festival. And thank you also for giving us some time this morning from your busy schedule for this quick interview.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Yes.
And we've just had 3 cruise ships pull in. We've got a huge cruise ship right behind us there, so hopefully we won't have a lot of people coming past us. But I thought you could start by telling us how you came up with the idea of organising a fibre festival here on Prince Edward Island, and then just give us a quick summary of what's on offer during the festival.
Well, I own a woolen mill and a yarn shop, and I always admired the Edinburgh Yarn Festival and the Shetland Wool Week, and I really, really wanted to go, but that really wasn't going to be possible with a farm and the woolen mill and everything. And then when I started doing some research on Shetland Wool Week, I realized how small the archipelago is, and I thought, well, we could just have one here. So that was kind of the genesis of the idea. I wanted a chance to be featuring like all woolly crafts, and we already had quite a well-established fibre trail here, which is a self-guided tour on Prince Edward Island, so we had a little bit of a base to start from, and that was kind of the genesis of the whole thing.
Okay, so what experience have you both had in organising events beforehand, and what are your roles? Because you're both doing different things.
Yeah, so I have no experience organizing events, and I come from, in my former life, I was in the business and marketing, but I do bring to the table the knowledge of the wool crafts and so forth. So I obviously needed help to do the organizing, and Linda that's what her superpower is.
So that's what happened. Kim hired my company. My colleague Bob and I are the coordinators for the PEI Fibre Festival. And ironically, you'll all find this kind of funny, but I have no fibre experience, or very little. I haven't picked up a knitting needle since I was 20.
We'll have to change that.
Maybe when I retire, I'll have some more time. Yeah. So we both have experience in organizing conferences and events, especially in the education and tourism field. And I've been in tourism for over 50 years. So I have a fair amount of experience at wanting people to have a good time and working out the details. So our role is to work with the volunteer board and to put into action what they would like to see happen.
And I can say Linda does an excellent job.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Thank you very much.
Just very quickly tell us, I think you've got, is it 38 vendors? How many vendors and how many workshops?
We have 38 vendors who have 48 booths, and that has sold out. The venue is completely sold out. And we have 54 workshops from instructors regionally, nationally, and internationally. So we're really quite excited about those workshops.
And how many people are you expecting to come?
We're expecting over 1,000 people to come, and a lot of those people are from outside of the province. Last year, in our first year, over 80% came from outside of our province, and they came from everywhere. We had them from as far away as Australia. I was looking at the ticket sales the other day, and we have people from the UK, from New Zealand. So they're coming from everywhere, 20 different states in the US. We're really excited to welcome you here.
That's fantastic. So did you actually have a clear vision for the festival right from the beginning? Or, because I'm wondering how you've gone about choosing the vendors and instructors and what criteria has been really important.
Yes, the vision was clear. It had to be, we wanted to really put an emphasis on natural fibers and all of the crafts that surround fibre, because it's not just knitting, there's crochet and felting and spinning, and we wanted to encompass all of that. And we wanted to also support small businesses as much as possible. So we carefully curate the participants, both the instructors and the vendors, to ensure that they're doing they have a well-established business and quality products and things like that. So it's not all just wool. There are other, or yarns and things like that. There are other products that are also welcome at the festival, but they're part of the environment of crafting, of fibre crafts, yes.
Yeah, so we have some of those people who are coming to be instructors that are working with beginners. Like Bristol Ivy's going to show different ways of binding off. And then we have also people who are here to instruct more intermediate knitters who really want to improve their skills. So we're really looking forward to all of those workshops.
Okay, so you've got what percentage or what ratio for beginners and then medium or intermediate and then advanced?
I'd say about 50% of our workshops are for beginners and about 40% are for intermediate, and then of course the remaining 10% are for those who are really the experts in the field. So there's something for everyone.
And you've got a couple of lectures as well, haven't you?
Yes, we do. Well, as a matter of fact, we have you, which we're really excited about. And besides you, we have Kirk Dunn, which I am really excited about as well, who is the knitting pilgrim who will be giving his one-man theater show about his experience knitting some beautiful, beautiful panels that look like stained glass, showing the 3 different religions that are most popular and well known around the world: Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And you don't need to knit to go to his show. He's going to be talking about his journey to understand all of those religions through his knitting, and we're really looking forward to that.
Sounds like a good program, and Madeline and I have been madly preparing our presentation, and this is the first time we've actually given a presentation exclusive.
A premiere.
Yeah.
Okay, so the social aspect of any festival is really a crucial element of its success, and you have organised a fantastic entertainment program for the Friday evening. So just tell us some more details of what's on offer socially.
So we're actually trying to recreate a maritime phenomenon, which is the Friday night kitchen party. So it's very popular in most of the maritime provinces that the community would get together at somebody's house on a Friday night and just to relax.
In their kitchen.
It doesn't start in the kitchen, and they don't officially call it a kitchen party, but everybody gravitates to the heart of the home, which is the kitchen. If somebody plays instruments, inevitably the instruments come out, and there is usually a kind of a certain type of dance that happens on the kitchen floor as well. And it's really like a kind of a unique opportunity for people to come together and be comfortable with each other. And we're trying to recreate that during the festival. So we have a really, really internationally renowned fiddler coming to provide the music. And he also is bringing with him what they call a caller, which will call and teach the the participants, how to do the dances that are done at those kitchen parties.
This is sounding like a ceilidh.
It is kind of like a ceilidh. A kitchen party in Scottish terms would be a ceilidh, for example. So, and the entertainer, entertainer is Richard Wood, and he will play different types of fiddling music that you would see in ceilidhs or Acadian parties, and he will get people your feet will be tapping, I promise. He will be doing that. He's internationally known. He worked with Shania Twain for a period of time. He's very well recognized. So those are, we want to recreate that atmosphere and have some fun.
And what about during the day when knitters just want to hang out together?
We've tried to get the hotel, the venue where we're hosting the festival, to put some knitting pods here and there, so participants can go and meet each other, talk to each other, have a coffee and knit and talk about their experience and share their what they're learning. So
and rest their weary legs.
Well, that too, of course, and maybe their weary hands too. But yes, there will be spaces through the hotel where they can congregate.
Okay, and I think you're doing a longer lunch period now because there's a lot of great restaurants in the area, isn't there?
Right. Within 10-minute walk, there's 35 restaurants, and we're known as Canada's Food Island. We have the Culinary Institute just a couple of blocks away. It's the Canadian Culinary Institute, so the restaurants are really good here. So we try to stretch it out at lunchtime so that the participants can go out and try some of the food, and they also have lots of time at supper time to go and try some of the great restaurants in the area.
I can imagine as the festival's going to grow, even more international tourists or visitors will want to come. So what other tourist activities are available in the area if they want to extend their stay?
Well, of course we want them to come and stay longer. The day after the festival, for example, is Farm Day in the City, and the steps right side of the hotel, a whole street is closed down, and there's exhibitors of crafts and foods from all over Prince Edward Island. There's usually about 10,000 people that attend this event. So that's the day after the festival, so I would really recommend people come and stay for that. You know, what PEI is most known for is really Lucy Montgomery and Anne of Green Gables. And all of those attractions that relate to Montgomery and her writing are all open at this time of year. So those can all be visited. If you're bringing a partner, or if you happen to like golf yourself, we're renowned for our golf courses. We also have a lot of festivals happening, and the big one that's happening from mid-September to mid-October is the Fall Flavors Festival, which is a festival that highlights the different foods and the special chefs that we have. There's some with indigenous cooking, there's some with all kinds of cooking. You can also taste some of our beverages at these festivals. PEI has wonderful breweries and cideries and wineries and 2 distilleries that are there. So that's one thing that's fun to do. And another thing that's kind of fun to do, I know it's not the warmest time of year to go swimming, but our beaches are great for walking, and we have fabulous hiking trails in this province where you can really communicate with nature.
Wow, you're really the right person to be in this interview. You have all of the information of what to do, where to go, what to see. Well, I'm really thrilled that you both took the time today to do this short interview. I'm going to let you go. They've got so much to do because it's just the start of the festival. And Madeline and I are going to whip around and get lots of good footage to show you. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. But when you're crying, you bring on the rain. Stop that sighing. Be happy again. Keep on smiling. 'Cause when you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you.
Hi, I'm Tana, and this is my best friend Suzanne, and we're both here at the PEI Fibre Festival, and this is our second time attending.
And as you can see, we've been best friends for a long time by what we're wearing. We both have the same sweater. It's the Lunenburg sweater that was inspired by a beautiful little community in our home province, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. This is the Lunenburg sweater. We love to knit the same things, and we also bought some hand-spun yarn. And of course, we both bought the same color and are knitting the same project we casted on last night, the Sophie shawl.
We both attended 2 workshops here. First, we did the steeking together, and now we both feel very confident in cutting our sweaters. And we also attended the how to make a sweater fit better, so all of our sweaters are going to fit better.
And now we can't wait to go shop. We're heading off to the marketplace, and we're going to find some new treasures.
Hi, I'm Logan, and I'm from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, so I'm a local here. It is my first time at the Fibre Festival, PEI, and I usually do felting. I've felted hats and scarves and boots. Today I took a class with nano felting, so I learned new techniques. I learned how to incorporate new fibers into my work, and I've bought some new batting for what I plan to make, a scarf and a shawl, and I'm going to go shop around and see what else I can find.
Hi, my name's Janine and I come from Melbourne, Australia. I'm in Canada to visit my daughter, and this is my first time at the festival. I very much enjoy knitting colourwork, and this sweater's by Eleanor Mortensen, and I also enjoy lace knitting, which I do a lot of. I've got a class this afternoon in Estonian braiding, which I've never done before, and I've just purchased this yarn. This will be for a baby cardigan. A friend of mine's just had a baby, and this will be for a summer top.
Hello, I'm Rita, and this is my husband, Alex, and we are really happy being here because I was able to find this beautiful yarn, so beautiful that we cannot just not to buy, right? I don't know how to say. So I am kind of knitter with experience, and I knit everything from my head. I don't use any patterns. So this is my sweater, and this is a hat I made for my husband. And again, what do you want to say?
Oh, so I like when she's happy, when she buy some stuff for her. And I have so many sweaters, and I love it, use it in the winter.
Hi, I'm Kathy Callback, and I'm here at the Fibre Festival for the second year in a row in Charlottetown. And I've come this year because this lovely mohair coat that belonged to my grandmother that she picked up in Scotland, I inherited it when she passed on. And between she and I, we have managed to wear out the elbows. And I don't want to stop wearing it, so I came with the hope of trying to find some mohair that I could then do a patch job so I could continue to wear it. And I've gotten some amazing help from the ladies here. And so my hope is to be able to, with their tutelage, go home now, put the patches on, and continue to wear this beautiful coat for many years to come. And once this is done and I've paid for this, I'm going to head off for a walk around the boardwalk to enjoy downtown Charlottetown.
Equation you need for your knitting. It is incredible. Absolutely wonderful. And it does the exact same thing for the decreases. It will also show it for you in the round. Increase evenly and decrease evenly does all of the math for you. So you can say I have X number of stitches on my needles. I want to increase by 50 stitches. And all
a 12 stitch facing that's going to be a 14 stitch fabric on the front. So your 6 rows are really the body of the facing. Do not skimp on facings. We are today because we haven't got all day to knit any stocking stitch.
I'm installing a lifeline in that I'm catching all of those stitches on a needle.
When you're smiling,
just because there are live stitches off the needles, your knitting isn't going to burst into flames or suddenly collapse.
smiles with you. When you're laughing, when you're laughing,
And these are the ones that
the sun comes
So if we go back to our
shining through. But when you're crying, you bring on the rain. Stop that sighing. Be happy again. Keep on smiling. 'Cause when you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. But when you're crying, you know you bring on the rain. Stop that sighing. Be happy again. Keep on smiling. 'Cause when you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're smiling, when you're smiling, well, the whole world, it smiles with you. When you're laughing, keep on smiling now. When you're laughing, you'll get through somehow. The sun comes shining through. When I'm with you. But when you're crying, you know you bring on the rain. Stop that sighing. Be happy again. Keep smiling. When you're smiling, baby, the whole world, it smiles with you. The whole world, it smiles with you.
I'm with Emma from Nova Scotia. Emma runs Botanical Fibres, which offers beautiful hand-dyed yarns using natural materials like plants and minerals. Emma also tries to source her dyeing materials locally and minimise waste during the production process. So Emma, can you tell us the story behind Botanical Fibres and then explain how you dye your yarns exactly?
Yeah, for sure. I've been a lifelong crafter and knitter. I went to the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design and graduated in 2014 with a BFA and a major in textiles. After I graduated, I started working at my local yarn shop, and I noticed that there was an uptake in indie dyers, but not in natural indie dyers. So I'd done some natural dyeing in university, and I loved it. So I decided to try my hand at filling that void. Sustainability is another passion of mine, which goes hand in hand with natural dyeing, and I'm able to carry that through every aspect of my business. I forage and collect dyes when I can that grow in abundance in my area. When you take from nature, it's important to not take too much and risk damaging the ecosystem. So a couple of my favorites are sumac, which are these cones here. I add iron to the dye bath because normally sumac, it's really tannin rich and it makes a kind of a dingy brown. But with the addition of the iron, it makes this really beautiful range of true grays.
Yeah.
Another favorite is goldenrod, which again is everywhere in the fall. And I add iron as well. But without the iron, it's kind of a boring yellow. And with the iron, it transforms into this nice green. Another way I get a lot of my colors is with exhaust baths.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm trying to get a rich color in my dye bath, there's likely dye left over when I'm done the process.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste that dye. And then I'm also able to make a nice accompanying color to the original color. So you'll see that in the yoke of my sweater here. This is the Chaiga by Mandori Hiroshi, and the bottom is my Color Force floor with the goldenrod and iron, and then the top is spring leaf, which is the exhaust bath of the original. These are Coreopsis flowers. They're grown in Nova Scotia. I got them from a local natural dye supplier, and they make a really beautiful range of oranges. I also source from a trusted Canadian supplier extracts and other natural products or natural dye materials My favorite, I think, is logwood, as you can tell. Yeah, you can add lots of additives and different things to get lots of shades.
Yeah.
This is an extract that I buy. Another favorite is madder root, which gives this beautiful range of corally reds and rusts. Madder root's really interesting because it's also heat sensitive, so you can change the color with an additive like an iron or adding another dye with it, or you can just control the heat. So if I keep it below a certain temperature, it's going to stay a different color. Whether I raise it up, it's going to change to a different color again.
Yeah.
Well, it's lots of options in that one, which is really fun. Cochineal is an insect that grows on cacti in South America, and it gives this beautiful range of different pinks. So this hot pink, I think, is my favorite. It's just made with adding a bit of cream of tartar to your dye. Yeah. And all of my blues are dyed in traditional indigo vats. And it's nice because a lot of my waste in the studio is just exhausted dye stuff. So I've done my work and then I can compost those, and it takes me about a year to accumulate any actual, like a bag of garbage.
That's great. Yeah. I can tell you're very passionate about experimenting as well.
It's really fun.
So we've got another rack of yarns over here.
Yeah.
Could you show us some more examples of your yarns and then also demonstrate how the different natural materials interact with different fibre bases?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'd like to explain my process a little bit. It's a bit different than a chemical dye process. It's multi-day. It starts with a washing and wetting out of the yarn, and then a mordant process where my mordant bath and yarn get brought up to a certain temperature, held, and then are allowed to gradually go back down to room temperature overnight. I need to exhaust a lot of my dye stuffs if they're not an extract, so that I basically make a large tea in my dye pot, let it come up to the right temperature, held, and then back down overnight, and then finally I can strain that out, rinse my mordanted yarn, and add them together, and then I'm finally in my dyeing stage and I can bring it up to the temperature I want again and hold it, and then before it's finally let to cool, and then the rinsing stage can begin, which can be kind of labor intensive depending on the color. So it's long, but it's a lot of fun.
Which one's the most labor intensive?
All the deeper color, like my amethyst color, which is one of my most popular.
Yeah.
But it's so rich that it tries to hold as much dye as it can.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's worth it. It's beautiful.
All right, so show us some of your yarns then.
Yeah. So all of my lineup is new nylon and superwash free. My sock yarn has a recycled nylon and also a chemical or chlorine-free process that's a little bit kinder on the environment and kinder to the yarn, but it also makes it a bit more hard-wearing and a bit easier to wash than
Which
an
you want for
untreated.
socks.
Yeah, exactly. My other...
Oh, and here's some examples of your socks knitted up.
Yeah.
Beautiful yarns.
Thank you. My other fingering weight is this one here. It's untreated BFL. It's a 2-ply and it has really lovely woolly texture. There's a sweater knit in it here. And this sweater was dyed with a combination of logwood and madder root. It's fun to be able to mix colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have this one up here is Feather, this fluffy guy. You can see how it dyes a bit paler with the alpaca. It's an alpaca, baby Surrey alpaca and silk blend. So it's a really nice alternative to mohair if you're a bit sensitive.
Yeah.
And it's really nice by itself. It has a long halo or with another yarn. So I have it knit up here. And it's actually 2 strands of my BFL and 1 of the Feather. And these are both dyed with madder root, similar to what you're holding actually. My favorite yarn, though, that I have on special this weekend is alpaca wool worsted. So this is my alpaca wool worsted. It's by far my favorite yarn. It's a nice blend of 65% wool, 35% alpaca. So there's enough wool to give it lots of memory, and it's cozy and warm, but the high alpaca content is also, it makes it a bit more luxurious. There's a bit of an alpaca halo. It makes it soft enough so you can wear against your skin. It's a light worsted weight, so depending on how you want your fabric to feel, I've knit it in both a DK gauge and a worsted gauge, and they all turn out really beautifully.
Yep.
And it's on sale this weekend for the PEI Fibre Festival.
And you're wearing it, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what this sweater is in here.
Now, what are the common misconceptions, and also how should knitters look after their knits when using naturally dyed yarns like yours?
So when you're taking care of naturally dyed garments, it's just the same basically as if you're taking care of any hand knit item. You want to take care of it with care and keep it out of direct sunlight when you're storing it. UV rays can damage even the most synthetic fibers and the most synthetic dyes, so it's no different with natural dyes. The only other thing to keep in mind is to make sure you wash it with your typical wool wash or your Eucaland or soak. If you use something that's really harsh detergent that might have not a neutral pH. You can play with pH when you're in the dye pots with natural dyeing. So it's fun when you're intentional about it, but not so fun if you dump in the wrong detergent and then it comes out having a color shift.
Yeah.
So sticking with your wool washes when you're washing your garment.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of misconceptions about natural dyes, if they're reliable or if they're going to fade. And unfortunately, that's because a lot of people say they're natural dyeing, but maybe they're using blueberries or red cabbage. And it's fun to play at home and see what you can get, but they're not traditional dye stuffs. They're not going to be color fast or light fast. They're just fugitive colors.
Yeah.
So I use only traditional dye stuffs. And it wasn't only 150-ish years ago that synthetic dyes were even invented. So before then, all things dyed were dyed naturally.
Yeah.
So they're definitely reliable.
Yeah.
And I have a special color for the show. This is called Island Dunes. I dyed it on my Sensible sock yarn. And I was inspired by the sandy cliffs of these beautiful beaches and how the iron and the sand, similar to what I do, shifts the color of the sand from kind of a sandy beige you always see to having some of those more rosy red colors that are so beautiful about PEI.
Yes. Anyway, thank you so much for being on Fruity Knitting. One can see that you have a lot of enthusiasm about the topic.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
This is where you come to get beautiful heirloom quality tools for the fibre arts. And with me is Scott, the founder of Fox Mountain Spindles. Scott uses the wood from maple, birch and cherry trees that have been locally harvested in the forest near his workshop in southwestern Nova Scotia. So Scott, how did you come to making tools for the fibre arts? And could you give us a quick overview of the products you're selling here today?
Yes, well, I've always had a love of nature, and I actually studied biology before I went into woodworking. So I fell into woodworking quite naturally because of my interest in forests, trees, and natural materials like wood. But in terms of how I started making fiber tools in particular, I have family members who spin yarn, and drop spindles in particular really fascinated me. When they mentioned that the tools were hard to source, I realized that I had the woodworking skills to make them, and I really love perfecting my own designs and putting unique twists on more traditional tools. And one thing I really love about making tools for fiber artists is how much they appreciate a quality handmade product like mine. There's a parallel in the process of turning a raw natural material like wool, or in my case, wood, into a high quality finished product. And I make all of my tools, or as many as possible, with lumber that I source from nearby forests that I know are being harvested sustainably. And I finish my tools with a natural oil finish, and customers really like that because it feels great in your hand. And when I make tools like this, I know that they're going to be cherished, last longer, and ultimately become heirlooms.
Yeah.
So today I have with me 3 spindles I want to show you that would be used for hand spinning wool into yarn. So to start, I have this top whirl drop spindle. I would say this is probably my most popular spindle I make, and the easiest to learn on. So it has this custom bent stainless steel hook on top for centering and holding the yarn. And if you look at the whirl, you can see that the weight is distributed towards the outside rim, which makes it spin quite nicely and for a long time. And this one in particular is made with some beautiful black walnut wood paired with sugar maple wood on top.
That's beautiful. And the next one is down here.
Yeah.
Comes in 2 pieces.
So this is a Tibetan style supported spindle, and it's called a supported spindle because it's spun in a bowl. So the weight of the spindle is not pulling down on the fibers as you spin, which allows you to spin very fine single ply yarns. It can be a bit of a challenge to get started on, but once you get the hang of it, it's very good at spinning fine yarns.
So that means you're not risking that the yarn breaks while you're spinning, is that right?
The fiber,
Yeah.
as we're with the something like the top whirl, which we were just talking about, the weight of the spindle is pulling on the fibers.
So this is for more advanced spinners, perhaps?
Yes, yeah. I'm not as good with that one. And this one, this is another popular spindle called a Delgan, which traces its roots to historical spindles from Scotland. And it has no hook and no whirl, which makes it a robust spindle and great for traveling. I've played with the traditional design just a little bit to make it easier to use, but you might have found something similar being used by early Scottish immigrants here at PEI or Nova Scotia. And I've wound this one up just with some leader yarn to show you that as you spin and then wind the yarn on, you wind it in a ball shape, and it actually sort of works like a whirl the more you build your ball of yarn. And when you're done, you can pop the ball right off and have a center pull ball of yarn ready to use.
That's so practical. So you've got a 2-in-1 tool here, and it's easy to take with you when you travel.
Yeah.
Perfect. You've got some more tools over here.
Yeah, I've got a few other things to show you. I have lots of tools here today, but just a couple more that I want to show you. I make a 3-hole diz with 3 different hole sizes used in preparing fiber or roving before spinning. And it would be like if you were taking wool off of a drum carder or fiber off of a drum carder, you would pull it through this to help shape the roving as you pulled it off. I also make this tool, which holds 4 felting needles. This one is nice because I've made the handle hollow. So when you're not using it, you can store the needles right inside.
Yeah.
This is a nostpin. It's another popular item I make for hand winding balls of yarn. It's sort of the original ball winder from Scandinavia. And even though hand winding balls of yarn can be a bit slower, there's something quite meditative about shaping a nice ball of yarn by hand, completely by hand.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to show you for now is this yarn holder. I call it a yarn buddy. And as you knit off of it, it feeds the yarn out really nicely because it has ball bearings recessed into the base.
Yeah. So which of your tools are you particularly keen to be showing customers today?
I have with me a limited number of nostipins made with my own cherry wood. And black cherry trees are not super common in Nova Scotia, and they don't get very big. But I really like working with the wood because it takes a nice finish, and it has a reddish color that actually gets darker and more complex with age and time. I have one other thing that I'm excited to show customers in person in PEI, and that is my tabletop yarn swift.
Well, then let's go over there and take a look.
So I think my tabletop yarn swift has some unique features that make it a pleasure to use. To start, the arms come off the base to store more easily, and it goes together with a single bolt and an Allen key that stores right here on the arm of the swift. Another nice feature is this sliding peg, which allows you to put the right amount of tension on any skein of yarn. And the base is very stable because it has 3 rubberized feet on the bottom. And the base actually has the same ball bearings in it that my yarn buddy has. And the swift actually comes with this attachment piece that when you aren't using it as a swift, this screws in, and you can use the base as a yarn buddy when you aren't using it as a swift.
That's very clever.
And I think that the design of my swift sort of embodies my approach to making fiber tools. I respect the traditional designs, but I like to add my own refinements just to make things a little bit easier and nicer to use. And all of the swifts I have with me here in PEI are made with my own maple wood that I dried in the solar kiln this spring, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah. Oh, one can really tell that your tools are very well thought through. Also, the felting needle, that was hollow inside. I love that. So thank you very much for showing us your tools today.
Thank you very much for coming.
I'm with Anna from the Hat Junkie. Anna loves combining old-fashioned millinery with modern-day practicality. And to do this, she uses techniques like sewing, felting, flower making, dyeing, straw hat making, and knitting to create one-of-a-kind hats. Anna, how did you become a hat maker? And tell us more about the techniques you use.
I have been making vintage style hats for 30 years. I taught myself millinery through books, by taking apart old hats, and lots of trial and error. Over the years, hats have become a vehicle for me to explore various fiber arts like felting and sewing, dyeing, straw hat making, and 6 years ago, at the age of 50, I learned to knit, and knitting has completely taken over my life and my business and my house. I am passionate about working with natural fibers. I'm very inspired by color, which is why I dye most of the materials I work with myself. I have a country Victorian style hat studio in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. It was built for me by my husband Tony, who's the owner of the Lunenburg Furniture Company. I sew my hats on antique sewing machines, including my great-grandmother's Singer treadle sewing machine that she used to make tuxedos on in the early 1900s in Montreal.
Yeah.
My studio is open to visitors. Lunenburg's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and truly one of the most beautiful towns in the world. And we have a great knitting store, so I really encourage people to come and visit.
That sounds exciting. So we've got so many beautiful hats in the background here. Can you show us some examples of your favourite hats
Yes.
and explain how you made them?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be modelling your
And
hats.
you are the perfect model. So, this is one of my hand-knit and felted hats. I knit an oversized beret from Dorset wool that is both grown and milled in Canada. And then I felt the hat down to size by hand. And I do this by hand so that I can control the direction and the amount of shrinkage. Once I have it to the size that I like, I shape the hat over wooden hat blocks, and then I'll add in any felt flowers or sometimes embroidery, and sometimes I do a little bit of pleating and folds in there as well. I love these hats because they have all the structure of a felt hat, but they're soft and stretchy and packable.
I can imagine they fit lots of different sized heads as well.
They do,
Yeah,
yes, and I
that's
make them in
useful.
different sizes
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So what's the next hat?
I make this hat using the wet felting technique. So I create a large template out of packing foam, the kind that comes on a roll. It's about twice as big as the finished hat. I lay out merino fibers overlapping each other, and this is called a bat, and I create two bats. The template goes in between the two bats. Both sides are wetted down with soapy water, and the edges are folded over to create a seam, so the template is enclosed. The felting process, and then I can actually put on any sort of surface design that I like or attach a flower. And the felting process begins with very gentle hand motions that increase in speed and intensity. And once it's strong enough, I can cut open the bottom and then pull out the template. So now I can work the inside and the outside of the hat. And it takes several hours of hard labor. And eventually the hat has completely felted. And then I do a final shaping over a hat block.
Amazing, yeah. Righty, and what's next? And this is woven fabric that you commissioned, isn't it?
This is hand-woven fabric. It is woven by a local Lunenburg weaver. And yeah, this is one of the hats that I make on my grandmother's antique sewing machine. And yeah, the fabric, as I said, is hand-woven, and I line the inside with silk, so it's great for people that have some wool sensitivity. The style of this hat is a cloche hat, and that means bell in French because the hat is shaped like a bell. The cloche was designed in the 1920s, and the 1920s was an era of, I would say, radical practicality and real freedom of fashion for women. So I think of a cloche hat as a really beautiful symbol of this time period.
Very comfortable. And there's a little bit of sun protection.
A little bit of
well.
sun protection, yes. Beautiful. I couldn't ask for a more beautiful model.
Thank you.
This hat is made from wheat straw braid. So of all the things I do, this is the one that I would say is hard. I begin with a bundle of braided wheat straw, finely braided, and I soak it in water. I like to say a bucket of my tears. And once it's malleable, I can spiral the straw and begin hand sewing a little button. So it's a little circle. Once it's big enough, I put it on my antique straw braid sewing machine, and I sew round and round, and the machine allows me to overlap the layers, and then I'm actually forming the hat as I'm as I'm working. So when I finish sewing, it's pretty much in the final shape. And if you look at the back of the hat, you will see this bow here. So I was mystified as to how to create that bow because it requires a flat piece of fabric. And then I remembered steeking a sweater, and that it's really the same thing, that I am sewing a tube of straw and then reinforcing the two edges that I'm going to cut, and then I cut it open, and then I can create the bow. It's fun when one craft informs another one.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh, thank you.
So what are you particularly excited about showing visitors here at the PEI Fibre Festival?
Okay, well, I'm very excited that I have published the pattern and created a kit as well as an online course to create my hand-knitted felted beret. And I'm going to put that on you because
Gladly.
I never miss an opportunity to show off a hat on a beautiful face. So the pattern itself has all the instructions for felting the hat and creating the flowers. But if you would like a little more guidance, and the online course is wonderful. It's 2.5 hours of video instruction, so it's all in there. And the kit, which I'll grab over here, the kit includes my hand-dyed yarn or undyed natural yarn and some beautiful wool felt and embroidery floss. The making of the hat is really quite simple. It has a gauge of 15 stitches for 4 inches, 10 centimeters. It has some Latvian braid and a very subtle seed stitch stripe, and then a little I-cord at the top. And the felting process takes about 45 minutes from start to finish.
That's reasonable, isn't it?
It is reasonable.
Yeah.
It's hard labor, but it doesn't have to be done all at once. It's totally okay to do it for 15 minutes, rinse the soap out, and come back to
That's
it on
great.
another day.
So just like knitting.
Just like knitting. You don't have to finish it all at once.
Yeah. Thank you so much for showing us your hats. You're extremely creative.
Oh, thank you.
I particularly like this idea of knitting a hat and then felting it. I hadn't heard of that before.
Yeah, and if I can just add that the instructions that I have for felting the hat can then be applied to any other kind of knit that you want to felt. And I think a lot of women run into they have a bad experience with a washing machine and then are afraid to actually felt it again.
Yeah.
And so this can really translate to anything else that somebody wants to felt.
So it's an all-rounded course then. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Briggs & Little Woolen Mills is located in New Brunswick, and with 167 years of history, it's the oldest woolen mill in Canada. From the beginning, Briggs & Little has been a family-owned mill, and its yarns have become an integral part of Canada's textile and knitting history. Currently, there are 2 generations of Littles running the mill. We've got Leah Little with me now, her husband, Mike, and their 2 sons. So the mill itself dates back to 1857. Can you briefly tell us how the mill has evolved over this time, and also how it's managed to survive and thrive over the past 167 years?
Certainly. So as you've said, it was established in 1857. In 1916, my husband's great-grandfather, Howard Little, became partner. And since that time, there has been a descendant of Howard's own or partially own the woolen mill. So currently, my husband, Mike, is the owner. And we have 2 of our 3 sons working with us, which are 5th generation Little to be there. And I guess in 1995, there was a devastating fire, November 1st, and that woolen mill burnt to the ground.
And that's happened before, hasn't it?
4 times.
Wow.
So that would have been the 4th time. We've had 3 floods, 4 fires.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, it burnt to the ground. My father-in-law, John Little, and his partner, John Thompson, owned the mill at that time. And they had to make the decision whether to rebuild or to shut the business down.
Yeah.
And they decided to rebuild, thankfully. So until 1857 until the 1940s, white, gray, and black were the only colors that they produced.
Yeah.
So in the 1940s...
Because these are the natural colors that
They
you
are.
would get from the fleece.
They are.
But then they introduced colors.
They did. So I'll take those.
Lovely, yep. Okay.
And So we have royal blue, scarlet, and patty green.
That would have been an exciting time.
I'm sure that especially the ladies would have been wonderfully excited.
Yeah.
Yes. At that point, there were 6 colors that were available, and we currently have just under 100 colors that you can choose from. So we have 11 lines and just under 100 colors.
Yeah, cool. And your mill it's able to complete all the stages of yarn production, including braiding and scouring and also dyeing the fleeces. And you also source your wool from local Canadian sheep farmers and support them that way.
We do.
Can you talk about the sheep breeds that you use and also give us some of the technical details of how you spin your yarns?
We purchase our wool. This is carded wool, but most of our wool comes from the Canadian Cooperative Wool Growers who are in Carleton Place, Ontario, and we buy as much yarn from the local farmers as we possibly can. So the wool that's our machine can manufacture, that they can use, is a medium to coarse weight. It's 24 to 34 microns. And
that's because the machinery is fairly old, isn't it?
It's antiquated. Very old. The oldest or the newest machine is about a 1945 or 1950s. So it's very old. So the breeds that our machines can use is Corriedale, Suffolk, and Dorset. And that is because the staple that they produce is about 2.5 to 5 inches, and that runs the best in our machinery.
Yeah.
So this is just a sample of the carded wool that comes through the first machine, the card.
Yeah. Great. And is there a yarn that you brought here to the PEI Fibre Festival that you're particularly keen to be showing visitors? Maybe a new release or something of that sort?
There is. So Briggs & Little is known for our traditional yarns. They're rustic and beautiful. But back a while ago, I wanted to change up and do something different. And my husband doesn't like change. So Mike was kind of resistant, but I'm very persuasive. And here they are today. Yes. So my oldest son, John, actually hand-dyed all of these yarns for the festival.
In your kitchen sink?
In the staff room, in the kitchen. So it's not done in vats or anything like that. It's all hand-dyed in chafing dishes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your history of the mill, and good luck on the festival with
Thank
your
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Many of us first encounter an antique spinning wheel through watching the classic fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty. Well, I'm with Sue from the Paisley Defender, and she refurbishes and works with antique spinning wheels. She also creates colourful bats and hand spins them into beautiful finished yarns. So, Sue, could you tell us about your personal approach to carding these bats for yourself and also for other hand spinners out there?
Okay, well, I first started making the bats because I couldn't get the type of yarn I wanted, and I thought, I'm just going to have to do it myself. And my colorways are mostly inspired by the coast. I grew up basically on an island, and I lived in the woods by the sea, and there's a lot of color transitions throughout the season. And like this particular one, I think of this as like a spring beach because the colors are a little muted, kind of dusty, dirty, doesn't have the bright, intense colors of summer. So this is my spring beach. There's other textures in here too, like that's some flax in there and some silk over here. And I like to have like different textures and shimmers of other things in just to make the yarn interesting when it's spun and knit.
So is this mainly merino?
This is mainly merino, but I mean, I'm the type of carder that I just put all the fibers around me and I just grab.
You just have it.
Whatever I think is going to work, I toss in there. And none of my bats are ever the same. They'll be similar colorways, but none of them will ever repeat. And that makes it really interesting when I spin because when I make this type of yarn, you can see all the different colors that are in there. And then when you knit with that, the colors will transition. And you don't have to think about changing anything.
Yeah. And do you have an example of this
Yes.
one? Is it this one here?
Yes, it's that one.
Yeah, maybe hold that side.
I'll hold this in.
There we go.
So each one of these skeins is a full bobbin on this wheel, and it will make enough yarn to make an item like this, a shawl, a cowl, scarf.
Yeah.
And you can see the colors transitioning in this.
Yeah, they transition really beautifully. Yeah.
This is a style of yarn that I've been really happy with lately. It's, I think it's called spiral plying.
They look really interesting.
Well, it's so much fun because each one of these skeins is one of my bats, and I spin one ply kind of thick and thin, and then I ply it with cotton weaving yarn core.
Yeah, that makes it look very bubbly.
Yeah, I call it my bubble yarn. Now, this particular one, I was thinking Halloween when I did it.
My favorite time of the year.
I've heard. And so these...
So that's the bat to go with it, is it?
Yeah. These are the bats.
That's very
So you can kind of see what it looks like before it's spun.
Yeah, and you just added a strand of black cotton to this, is that right?
I think that one...
Or blue,
yeah, that one's dark purple. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Well, thank you for showing us your yarns and your cardings. Can you show us a little bit of how you spin?
Oh, sure. Now, I love this wheel. It was sitting in someone's house as a decoration for many, many years. But these old wheels, they love to work. What I do with them is I